Hey guys, welcome back to the Hybrid Network, and, well, this is just something we're trying out, but we figured that with all of the positive reception y'all had to some of our other script dissections, that we'd come back and do some more for films that were lost to the spans of time. Either from their time in development hell, or to the changing landscape of the movie industry, or some movie ideas that just weren't up to snuff. We're talking about the films you never saw, where today we're taking a look at a treatment for the Scarlet Speedster that never found its way to the silver screens. David Goyer's The Flash. So let's preface this a little bit. Back in 2004, Warner Brothers announced that they'd be pursuing a live-action movie centered around the DC superhero, The Flash, to be written and possibly directed by David S. Goyer, with the following treatment being read here from a 2006 draft of that very script. Obviously, the plan didn't really go anywhere due to a lot of factors like the onset of Iron Man and the Dark Knight trilogy having a huge impact on how Warner Brothers wanted to approach these superhero characters, and The Flash was exchanged through the years between directors and script treatments, including one from Greg Berlanti, Mark Guggenheim, and Michael Green, whom a lot of you may know as the architects for the CW DC universe that started with Arrow back in 2012. The following is the intended story for that initial film from Goyer, and has no bearing on the currently in production Flashpoint movie that's been announced by Warner Brothers. Seems obvious, I know, but I think it's better to go ahead and say that anyway, just in case. Well, enough of the backstory. What would David Goyer's Flash have looked like? Honestly, kinda plain. I'll get into the intricacies of why later on, but essentially the movie follows the basic plot outline and typical formula of most superhero movies of that time, and in a lot of ways feels pretty similar to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in the perceived aesthetic and the general journey that the hero embarks on. But believe it or not, this movie wouldn't have been about Barry Allen. Well, not entirely, but instead, Wally West would be the star. The premise of the movie basically would have lied in Wally being gifted the powers of a former Flash, his Uncle Barry, and the responsibilities that came with it, inheriting the legacy of the fastest man alive. So the story starts off by showing Wally as a troubled individual with a bit of a rough childhood, it would seem. It's not expanded on too much after this, but we're led to believe that his family is going through a shakeup at the moment, and Wally's been shipped off to live with his Aunt Iris and Uncle Barry, a surrogate father figure for the parent that's currently walking out on he and his mother in the aftermath of a messy divorce. There's a heartwarming scene between the two about how lucky Barry is to essentially raise Wally himself, only being pulled away at the last minute by a call from his partner in the police department, Hunter Zolomon. Apparently there's a holdup at a French chateau in Keystone City, holding a criminal genius the likes of which the world has never seen. A man known as Victor Vesp, who by all accounts is portraying the villain, the Turtle. Why do I know this? Well, because of his lackey, Edmund Slow, one of the villain's lackeys from the comic books, and just, well, he's called it in the script, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. Suiting up as the Flash, Barry attempts to bring Vesp to justice with the Keystone City police, but the villain has a trump card: a young Wally West held hostage. Yes, Barry's nephew seemingly followed his uncle and managed to get himself caught by the supervillain, who uses Wally as a means to entrap Barry Allen in what he calls an infinity transducer, a device capable of transferring the speed flowing into the Flash and redirecting it elsewhere, into Vesp as he plans. So this is actually the most interesting part, because Goyer's Flash script is for all intents and purposes a legacy film. Barry Allen seemingly dies at the hands of the Turtle, his powers flowing into Wally as he goes on, not knowing about the potential within himself, and constantly haunted by the sight of visions of Barry and hearing his uncle's voice calling out to him. But that doesn't necessarily mean he does much with his life, as 12 years later, everyone from his ex-girlfriend to his Aunt Iris tells him that he's basically running in circles, too afraid to disappoint his uncle with whatever he chooses in life, opting to never commit so as to never disappoint. Fate has other plans for him, as Wally is struck by lightning while visiting Barry's grave, the bolt charging his body and unleashing the granted Speed Force connection that lie dormant within. Constantly blue-shifting within the electromagnetic spectrum, Wally and Barry's old partner, Hunter Zolomon, visit Star Labs for some answers, meeting Jerry and Tina Mcgee, characters comic fans will know as big parts of Wally West lore from the comic books. With their help, and with Hunter's pressing, Wally dons the mantle of the Flash, but not in a way that you'd expect. See, the other weird thing in the script is that Wally's identity as the Flash is public knowledge, The entirety of Keystone City knows that he's the fastest man alive, and we see something very similar to Raimi's Spider-Man as I mentioned earlier, in which Wally kind of uses this for his own personal gain, making the Flash into a brand essentially, you know, from t-shirts and Nike deals and action figures, everything of that sort. This causes all sorts of problems, from Wally shirking his heroic responsibility for a stable income, Hunter growing angry at the blatant disregard for heroism, an encroaching love triangle between Tina and Jerry Mcgee, and Victor Vesp's newfound interest in West as the key to gaining speed once again, as his last encounter with the Flash slowed his metabolic processes down significantly, leaving him, well, slow. Like a turtle, which people actually call him, and no, it's never once sounds natural or even remotely threatening reading about it. Anyway, we get a lot of back and forth, Wally losing sight on what exactly it means to be a hero, only to rediscover this when he saves Hunter and a group of passengers from a crashing plane, which is probably one of the cooler sounding scenes in the film, but it was all a ploy to obtain some of Wally's speed by Vesp, who of course pleads the simple but effective, "You're wasting the power that I have much better insight over" shtick. At least it would be effective. We've seen it so many times before that at this point it's pretty ridiculous. That actually brings me to a complaint. The movie actually introduces a second villain about halfway through, the villainous Zoom, as a cohort and guinea pig of turtles to test Wally's stolen power on, with the script making this big mystery as to who the guy is, although the fact that he has a Flash costume seems like a pretty easy indicator. But the movie tries to make Jerry Mcgee for the villain, which is a good red herring anyway since he does become a speedster villain in the comic. But the villain is exactly who you'd expect it to be, Hunter Zolomon. Yeah, after messing with Wally all throughout the script, Hunter explains that he's been hiding his bitterness for Barry and Wally throughout the whole movie, seething with anger that he loses his legs trying to protect Wally and he obtains superpowers, fame, women, and the like, teaming with the turtle to obtain what he believes should be rightfully his, and that Wally couldn't possibly understand what tragedy is and how it can make us stronger once we overcome it. This is kind of his deal in the comics, but simplified greatly and not as well developed. Regardless, the two battle, only for Zoom to be incapacitated by Turtle, who traps Wally in the same infinity transducer, science bullshit, that he trapped Barry in, sending him into the Speed Force and to the moment where he witnessed Barry die, finding his uncle still alive within the Force but as a being of pure energy. Barry's been living the past 12 years as a ghost within the Speed Force, realizing his purpose for sticking around was to help Wally escape and finish what was started so many years ago, helping his nephew to complete his destiny. After a heartfelt reunion, Wally whizzes back to the present only to discover that Zoom has betrayed Turtle and killed him, taking all of the speed for himself and has sped off to cause all manners of destruction as revenge for the world looking down on him. Usual stuff. Wally and Zoom have a huge battle taking place all across the world, but with the odds not looking so good for Wally until he thinks back to a problem Tina Mcgee had been reminding him of throughout the whole movie. Using so much power causes a huge metabolic change in his internal clock, with overexertion of power possibly leading to him aging at an accelerated rate, something Hunter was unprivy to in his quest for more and more power. Deciding that the only way to win is to exploit this, Wally transfers his velocity to Hunter, who ages at such a rate that he simply vanishes into nothingness. The day is saved. Wally gets the girl, something that was kind of underdeveloped and not very important. He plans to save Barry from the Speed Force once he's grown strong enough, and he realizes the importance of holding up Barry's ideals. Pretty generic and honestly nothing new. David Goyer's Flash tackles a few interesting ideas and concepts, really going into the more zany aspects of the Flash comic book wise, but the general plot, journey of the hero, and overall antagonistic force is so on the nose and kind of cliche that I can't imagine I'd be that into it if it had been made. The Flash being a legacy is interesting, I'll warrant that, but Wally's growth is something we've seen so many times in other films, and it's not really done in a new way to be particularly interesting or exciting. It just feels flat, as if there's not a whole lot of effort that was gone into making it a film that would stand out from the crowd. But that's kind of just my take on it. What did you all think of this? Would you have wanted to see David Goyer's Flash, or are you more interested in the Flashpoint movie we'll be getting from Warner Brothers and DC Films? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe for more videos, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. If you'd like to show your support, consider donating to our Patreon page, where every dollar goes towards creating higher quality content for you, the viewer. Thanks guys, and we'll catch you all next time.